Bring my man Dan, man. We have been discussing this for some time. Almost every Monday, we discuss technology and merely bring it to everyone's attention. This will be referred to as *5 with IES asterisk. It's me and my man Dan talking. And we're going to be honest, if you've ever seen Uncan Ooh on Nightcap, it will be 5 minutes of rapid fire. Right now, I'm breaking out the clock. Oh, let's go Dan. Well, let's go and get this done. Today, let's begin with your note. Your two picks are AI and software, with an optimistic outlook on both. They were Snowflake and Elastic on the first day of the exhibition. Since last week's earnings, both of those stocks have increased by more than 20%. Why would you purchase these stocks at this time? Yes, and look, Frank, you and I have been discussing this for a while. Software is considered the next stage of the AI revolution. The year 2025 will mark the advent of software AI. Elastic, Snowflake, front and center. And even if the stock has clearly had a strong run in the past week or two, that's only the beginning of how I will develop. In both of those titles, we might be looking at parabolic moves. These consumption models are only getting started, based on our checks, and they also reflect what we're seeing in software, including ServiceNow, Salesforce, Palantir, and others. Only the beginning. Bring out the popcorn. Okay, so we have a lot to discuss. But before we do, I would like to briefly address the impact of the stronger currency and the trend of higher rates on these two names in particular. They both own companies outside of the United States. Given that the dollar has increased by 3% this month alone, are you worried about earnings for these two companies as well as the rest of the tech industry? A lot of that because of the election and yields that haven't dropped back down in spite of the Fed rate decreases. Indeed, we need to watch where it goes in 2025. Keep that in mind. In my opinion, street models and guidance are currently in a fairly good place with regard to some of those challenges. Needless to say, that might still be a problem, but the truth is that the street is already aware of what is about to happen. Additionally, based on the growth and general tailwinds, this is going to be an AI. But I don't see that at all. We go on to the AI party at around 9:30 or 10 p.m. The time was from 9:00 p.m. until 4:00 a.m. Software is currently in that queue behind the velvet ropes, along with hyperscalers, Nvidia, and others, so that isn't stopping. Okay, so the celebration continues. You're not very concerned about currency, at least not for Q4. Not in Q4. Maybe we're talking about a minor headwind as we move into the following year. But in all honesty, I believe that will only exist for the year. Okay, let's continue with your note. Another noteworthy aspect of your note is that you are now up to 75, although your Palantir price goal was 57. You are twice as good as the street consensus, which is roughly 37. Dan, this stock has increased by about 270% so far this year. What is the source of the remaining positive aspects? Get specific. Where does the remaining upside originate? Because a large number of people are Dr. Karp fans or pound investors. I am aware that you have worked for the company for a while. Look, the critics will still be critical of this one, but I believe Palantir is the firm that might be the next Salesforce, Oracle, or SAP. After you get specific, AIP, we're talking about something that might end up generating, less than $30 million in income, which, after everything is said and done, might amount to $1 billion annually. When you start to figure that out, you realize that you're talking about $5 billion in free cash flow over the next 3 or 4 years, not $1 billion. To tell the truth, I believe that $75 is conservative. When it comes to what we see, especially as we get into 2025, the conviction level is high, because I would be shocked to see a triple-digit stock in Palantir. I am aware that you have been optimistic about this new government, not because of its political views, but because of its plans to reduce regulations in the internet industry and remove Khan from the FTC. It's almost certain, in my opinion, that she will lead that position. Does reduced regulation mean that Palantir will benefit? Are Elastic and Snowflake benefiting from that? If so, be specific. That's fantastic. Look, the fact that there will be more deal-making makes it bullish. Additionally, you'll notice a greater emphasis on AI in government initiatives on the government side. The outlook for Snowflake, Palantir, and other names like Elastic will all be positive. And as far as where we see this going, I simply believe that less regulation in this fourth industrial revolution is a kind of goal now be in treasury. That was my next query. Then, we are discussing this incoming government. President Trump has named Scott Bessent as his Treasury nominee. This appointment is obviously still pending confirmation, but if it is, it would be someone with this kind of global perspective, and someone who previously collaborated with George Soros, despite the fact that President Trump and his administration have very different ideologies. What does he mean for the tech industry, in your opinion? In my opinion, he is also an advocate of artificial intelligence, and his arrival would be just another astute, calculated remark for the Trump administration. He has the potential to play a significant role on a worldwide scale, in my opinion, particularly in relation to the trade talks with China and other issues. He is more deregulatory and street-friendly, which in my view is just more good news for the industry, which is still a dominating theme in my vision of the market. By the way, you had a worthy day on worldwide exchange today. We're approximately 5.5 minutes, just to be honest. It's where we're going to end it. My man was among the first 5 A's. This was only the beginning. I can't wait. I hope everyone had fun with the legend himself. I appreciate the news update, Dan, Tyler, and Matt. In the meantime, Nvidia is taking a slightly unconventional approach by launching Fugato, a new AI audio generator today. We have George Bosa join us for the tech check today. What role does this action play in the business's overall AI strategy? It is now a product rather than merely the supporting infrastructure. That's right. I'll address some of the many questions it poses. I want to show you this first, though. I can't just tell you about Fugato. It's a generative AI product. You must listen to it for yourself. When the user asked it to produce a saxophone howling, barking, and then electronic music with dogs, this is what it spit out in the demo. Music. Thus, it is a peculiar yet completely novel sound that has never been heard before and is intended to provide music, movies, and video games new synthetic capabilities. You're out of luck, though, if you want to give it a try. Since Nvidia has no intention of making this available to the general public, it begs the question of why they would do it at all. There are many other things that Nvidia may concentrate on, such as the launch of Blackwell, and the firm is not recognized for producing consumer goods. The explanation is that Nvidia has been able to remain relevant for decades and develop into the hardware-software AI powerhouse that it is now because to moonshot initiatives like Fugato and Project Shield in the early 2010s. The business has a long history of producing goods that either encourage consumers to develop new items on their own or serve as the foundation for its own innovations. Consider DGX, which is a supercomputer for AI activities. In fact, some of the lessons learned from a Shield streaming box went into its creation. It would familiarize Nvidia with software-hardware integration and supply chain management, two things that are vital to the company today. In a recent podcast, Jensen Huang discussed this with Armco Reen H. They claimed that the market fit for this project field was completely obscure at the time. I used it as justification to transform Nvidia into a systems business. Yes, and people will question me about the machine that revolutionized everything, the DGX-1. Correct. Well, how did that happen, you know? To put it simply, DGX-1 is a huge shield. The game-changing computer began as a set-top box, and today, DGX is a fundamental component of the Nvidia ecosystem. Since these models must, of course, be trained on something, typically someone else's invention or intellectual property, these moonshots do get a little more complex in the era of generative AI (DOM). This raises the possibility of abuse, which Nvidia admits and explains why there are no urgent plans to distribute it. The reason we're even discussing this, DOM, is that Nvidia has a history of developing devices for which we don't even yet know the endgame. But someone else, or perhaps Nvidia itself, might find it out. However, this is an intriguing development as we enter the era of audio generative AI.